Before you go any further, just stop for a second. Put your hand on your chest, take a slow breath and settle in. What you are about to read is not just another piece of content. It carries something real, something that might feel like it was written specifically for you. If this reached you today, trust that there is a reason for it. Certain truths have a way of finding us only when we are finally in a place where we can receive them. Here is what you need to sit with. There is someone out there who has been thinking about you. Not in a casual way, not once in a while, but deeply and consistently. They have been carrying your name inside them without saying a word. Something is shifting now. Life, or the universe, or whatever you believe in, is moving things around quietly. This person is making their way back to you, and what they are bringing with them is going to catch you completely off guard. Take a moment before you continue. This is not a random message that appeared in your day. It arrived because something in you was ready for it. Somewhere in your life, there is a person who has gone quiet. Maybe they pulled away. Maybe they acted like they moved on, like you were a chapter they finished and closed. But something has changed in them recently. Something quiet but important. And now they are coming back. Not to make small talk, not to simply check in. They are coming because there is a truth inside them that has become too heavy to keep hidden. And when they finally say it, it is going to shake you. Now think about why this was always going to happen. There are certain connections that do not follow normal rules. Time does not erase them. Distance does not weaken them. Silence does not destroy them. And you have probably already felt the effects of this. You have thought about this person suddenly, without reason. You have heard something that reminded you of them. You have woken up from dreams with their face still in your mind. You have felt emotions you could not explain. None of that is random. When two people are still connected on a deeper level, those threads show themselves even after long silence. This person tried to cut those threads. They stayed busy. They told themselves they were over it. They convinced themselves they were fine. And maybe in the daytime, they almost believed it. But at night, when everything got quiet, you kept appearing in their mind. And that kind of silence, mixed with that kind of feeling, does not stay buried forever. On the surface, they may look fine, but inside, there is conflict. They replay moments between you. They hear your voice in their memory. They ask themselves why they still feel this way, why nobody else feels the same, why you, of all people, still matter. And the answer scares them. Because it means you mattered more than they admitted. Now they are facing a truth they avoided. They did not lose you because it simply did not work out. They lost you because they did not show up the way they should have. That realization is heavy. And you might wonder why they stayed silent for so long if they felt all of this. The answer is fear. Fear of your reaction. Fear that you had moved on. Fear that they were too late. Fear of rejection. Fear of facing their own mistakes. So silence felt safer. But silence always has a cost. Every day they did not reach out, the weight inside them grew. The truth became louder. And eventually, silence stopped feeling like protection and started feeling like a prison. Something recently broke that pattern. It might have been something small, a memory, a message, a sight of you, a moment of loneliness. Something that made everything hit differently. Whatever it was, it broke through the wall they built around themselves. And in that moment, they made a decision. Not out of impulse, not out of emotion alone, but from something deeper. They decided they needed to speak. And when they do, it will not be casual. They are not coming to make things comfortable or light. They are coming to say what they never said, the things they buried, the things pride stopped them from expressing, the regrets they carried quietly. You may have thought they were unaffected. You may have thought they moved on without looking back. But the truth is different. They felt everything. They just did not know how to show it. Or they were afraid to try. And when that truth finally comes out, It will surprise you. Because what is happening is not just a moment, it is a threshold. It is something that does not arrive loudly. It does not announce itself clearly. It builds slowly through silence, distance, reflection, and time. And when it finally becomes clear, it carries weight. Not only because of what will be said, but because of everything that was never said before. They did not reach this point quickly. People often think apologies come from sudden realization, but real honesty does not appear instantly. It builds in private moments where no one is watching. Moments where there is no audience, no pressure, no defense. Just a person alone with their thoughts, slowly facing what they lost and how they contributed to losing it. That is not an easy place to sit in, because saying, "I was wrong," in this situation is not just admitting a mistake. It is breaking down an identity. It is letting go of the version of themselves that protected them from guilt. The version that justified everything. The version that told them it was all fine or meant to be. And instead, seeing clearly that something real was there and they did not handle it properly. That realization does not feel light. It feels heavy. At first, they may have tried to avoid it. They may have tried distractions, new people, new routines, new ways to convince themselves it was not that deep. But comparison changes everything. Because when every new connection gets measured against what they had with you, something becomes clear. You set a standard. Not in a surface way, not in a better or worse way, but in a deeper way. Something about how you cared, how you showed up, how you connected, became a reference point in their mind. And when nothing after that feels the same, the mind starts to question what it once dismissed. Time apart does something important when it is honest. It removes emotional noise. It clears confusion. It allows reflection to settle. It does not always lead people back together, but it often leads to clarity. And clarity is what brought them here. Not certainty, not a perfect plan, just clarity. They do not know how you will respond. They do not know if it is too late. They do not know if you have moved on in ways that cannot be undone. But they do know one thing. If they stay silent, the regret will never leave. There is a specific kind of regret that does not fade. It just stays in the background of a person's life. Quiet, constant, unresolved. Because something real was never fully expressed. And now they have decided they do not want to carry that anymore. That decision matters, because the version of them who avoided responsibility before would not be able to do this. The version who ran from discomfort would not be able to stand in front of you and say the truth without excuses. Something has changed in them. But this moment is not only about them, it is also about you. Because it would be easy to see this and feel hope immediately. Easy to think it confirms everything you felt. Easy to assume it means things are returning to how they were. But awareness is more important than hope here. Hope without grounding can pull you back into old patterns. It can make you ignore what does not feel right. It can make you rush into something before you are ready. Awareness does something different. It keeps you present. It lets you listen not just to words but to tone. Not just to promises but to consistency. Not just to emotion but to action. Because anyone can say they are sorry. Anyone can express regret in a powerful moment. What matters is what happens after. Do they change how they show up? Do they stay consistent? Do their actions match their words over time? That is where truth reveals itself. And you are not the same person you were before. You have gone through your own process. You have felt the absence. You have questioned things. You have rebuilt parts of yourself. That changes how you see everything. So when this meeting happens, you are not walking in with confusion. You are walking in with awareness. You know what it felt like before. You know what it cost you. You know what it took to move forward. And that means this moment is not only about what they say, it is about how you respond. Not from emotion alone, but from clarity. There will be a moment when everything feels still. It will be subtle, but you will feel it. Before thinking takes over, before reaction begins, there will be recognition. A quiet understanding of what is actually in front of you. That is the moment that matters. Because it shows you what is real underneath everything else. Not the story, not the hope, not the fear, just reality. And you will be able to respond to it. Not immediately, not perfectly, but honestly. You might ask questions, you might set boundaries, you might need time. You might feel something but still choose to step back. All of that is valid. Because this is not about going back. It is about understanding what is actually possible now. And that does not need to be rushed. What matters most is truth. The truth of what happened before. The truth of what exists now. And the truth of what can realistically come next. Because when truth is fully seen, it brings peace. Even if the outcome is not what you expected. If there is something still there, it will not just show in words. It will show in consistency, effort, and time. And if there isn't, that will become clear too. Either way, something reaches resolution. Something that once felt open, unfinished, and lingering in the background of your life finally comes into clarity. And that clarity allows you to move forward without carrying questions that do not have answers. That is not a small thing, because unresolved connections have a way of staying with us. Not always in obvious ways, but in quiet, subtle patterns that shape how we approach new relationships and how we trust, and how open or guarded we allow ourselves to be. When something like this is brought into the light, it releases that hold. It gives you the chance to fully understand what you experienced, not only emotionally, but in a meaningful way. To see that what you felt was real, that it mattered, that it carried depth and significance. And that matters regardless of whether the relationship continues or not. Because one of the quiet fears people carry after something like this ends is the question of whether it was ever truly mutual. Whether they imagined the depth, whether they cared more. Whether the connection meant something different to the other person. This moment answers that, not in theory, but in something real and tangible. Someone standing in front of you, choosing honesty. Choosing to acknowledge what they did not before. Choosing to risk discomfort and rejection in order to express something real. That does not happen without feeling. That does not happen without meaning behind it. And while that does not automatically mean the relationship should continue or will continue, it does mean something important. You did not misread it. You did not get it wrong by loving the way you did. And that is something worth holding on to, because it reflects who you are. Not only in this connection, but in every connection you will have moving forward. What you are holding here is something many people spend years trying to unlearn, suppress, or question. The instinct to love deeply, to show up fully, to invest not just attention, but presence. And somewhere along the way, often through disappointment or imbalance, that instinct starts to feel like a weakness instead of a strength. But it was never the problem. The difficulty was never your capacity to care. It was where that care was placed, how it was received, and whether it was met with the same level of awareness, readiness, and emotional responsibility. When something meaningful breaks down, especially when you gave it your full sincerity, the mind searches for explanations. And one of the easiest conclusions it reaches is that maybe you cared too much. Maybe you gave too much. Maybe you should have held back. That thought feels protective. It creates the illusion that next time, by being less open, less invested, less expressive, you can avoid being hurt in the same way. But what it actually does is distance you from one of your greatest strengths. Because the ability to care deeply is not something that needs to be reduced in order to be safe. It is something that needs direction. It becomes powerful when it is placed in an environment where it can grow, instead of being taken for granted. You do not fix a meaningful trait by shrinking it. You refine it by understanding it. And understanding it means recognizing that deep feeling is not what causes pain. Misalignment is what causes pain. When two people are not in the same place emotionally, when one is more aware, more ready, or more willing than the other, that imbalance creates strain. It creates confusion. It creates moments where one person is trying to build something real, while the other is still trying to understand what they feel. That is not a failure of love. It is a difference in timing, in readiness, and in emotional clarity. And that difference is what makes experiences like this so difficult, because they exist in that in-between space where something real is present, but not fully supported by both people in the same way. So when you look back and see how much you gave, how openly you showed up, how sincerely you cared, do not reinterpret that as something wrong. See it as what it was, a genuine expression of who you are. Because that part of you did not break anything, it revealed something. It revealed your depth. It revealed the kind of connection you naturally create when you are not holding back. It revealed what it feels like to experience something real, something emotionally present, something that carries weight and meaning. And that matters, not because it guarantees every connection will last, but because it gives you a reference point. A clear understanding of what meaningful connection actually feels like in real life, not in imagination, but in lived experience. Being emotionally present with someone in a real way is something many people never fully experience. So instead of questioning that part of yourself, the shift becomes how you carry it forward. Not with fear, not with hesitation, not with the intention to become less, but with discernment. Discernment changes everything. It allows you to remain open, to remain expressive, to continue caring deeply, but only in spaces where that energy is met and reciprocated. It allows you to notice earlier when something feels off, when effort is uneven, when clarity is missing. It allows you to step back, not from fear, but from awareness. And awareness transforms everything going forward. Because now, as this moment approaches, this meeting, this conversation, this possible turning point, you are not entering it as someone who needs a specific outcome in order to feel complete. You are entering it as someone who has already done the internal work of understanding yourself more deeply. That changes the entire dynamic. It moves you out of waiting and into observing. Not in a cold or detached way, but in a grounded way. You are no longer trying to prove your worth, no longer trying to hold something together, no longer trying to decode mixed signals or fill emotional gaps. You are simply present, seeing what is real, responding to what is actually happening instead of what you hope might happen. And that is where clarity comes from. Because clarity does not come from overthinking every detail or trying to predict outcomes. It comes from being fully present with what is in front of you, and allowing it to reveal itself without interference. When someone speaks from honesty, you can feel it. There is a steadiness, even if they are nervous. There is openness, even if the words are difficult. There is a lack of defensiveness, a willingness to take responsibility without softening the truth too much. And when that is real, it is easy to sense. But when something is incomplete, when words are there but the depth behind them is missing, that is also something you can feel. And this time, you are not going to ignore that feeling. That is one of the most important changes that has happened within you. Before, you might have given the benefit of the doubt. You might have filled in gaps. You might have interpreted uncertainty in a hopeful direction. You might have assumed that what was unclear would eventually become clear. But now, you do not need to do that, because you understand something important. What is real does not require constant interpretation. It shows itself more directly. And that understanding gives you internal stability. It changes how you experience this moment entirely. You are not asking, will this work? You are asking, is this aligned? That is a quieter question, but a more powerful one, because it is not focused on outcome. It is focused on truth. And truth simplifies things. It removes layers of projection, overthinking, imagined futures, and emotional storytelling. It brings everything back to what is actually being offered, what is actually being felt, and what is actually possible from this point forward. Sometimes what is offered is enough. Sometimes people grow. Sometimes they become more aware. Sometimes they return not only with words, but with changed behavior, with consistency, with presence, with a willingness to engage in something real instead of avoiding it. And when that happens, something new can be built. Not a return to what was, but something different, shaped by growth and understanding. But sometimes what is offered is not enough. Sometimes realization comes too late. Sometimes awareness does not translate into action. Sometimes the feeling exists, but the ability to sustain it does not. And that is not something you need to fix. That is something you recognize. Recognizing it does not mean it was not real. It does not mean it did not matter. It simply means it does not align in the way needed for a healthy continuation. And having the clarity to see that, without trying to reshape it into something else, is a form of strength. Because it requires choosing truth over attachment. And that is never easy. But it is what allows you to move forward without carrying unresolved weight. Because ultimately, that is what this moment offers. Not just the possibility of reconnection, but the possibility of resolution. Something that once existed in uncertainty is now being brought into clarity. And once something reaches that level of completion, it no longer holds the same emotional grip. It becomes part of your experience, part of your understanding, part of your growth. But it no longer sits as something unfinished. That is where peace comes from. Not from a perfect outcome, but from no longer feeling stuck in what-ifs. Not replaying conversations, not questioning what should have been said or done differently. Just clarity. And because of that, this moment is not something to approach with fear. It is something to approach with presence. Let it unfold without forcing it into shape too early. Let it reveal itself in time. You do not need to decide everything in advance. You only need to be present enough to recognize what is real when it shows itself. That is all this moment asks of you. Not certainty, not control, just presence and honesty. And in the end, that is what brings you back to yourself. And sometimes that is the real purpose of moments like this. Not to restore what once was in the same form, but to show you who you are now. To reflect your growth in a real situation that once would have felt overwhelming, and now feels understandable from a different place within you. That is not coincidence. That is alignment. And whether this becomes a new beginning or a final closing, one truth remains steady. You are no longer approaching love from uncertainty. You are approaching it from understanding.